Felter, welcome to the show. I can't wait to chat you up about branding and design.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right, let's start from the beginning. I think you started as faculty at a university. Tell me a little bit about your journey and why you teach design.
Yeah, so I actually started as adjunct faculty. So I was full time an employee in the admissions office at a university, overseeing marketing, operations, and technical systems, and was just kind of teaching a course on the side for fun. So the course I was teaching was called Visual Communication. It was a required course for all communication students, and it taught them how to design a flyer and, a graphic and put together a simple video, like if you were a PR major or whatever. And then, you know, in 2020, I did a quick stint in corporate consulting because I'd been in higher ed for a while and was like, need to try something else. Didn't really like that and decided that I wanted to go on my own and I wanted to be a motivational speaker. So I
Oh,
sold my house. I quit my job in January of 2020. It was the worst timing ever. My
yes.
first speaking gig was in Nashville on March 27th, 2020. So obviously that never happened. The
Nope.
dream of being a speaker and jet setting around the country never happened. And so the reality was that through the pandemic, I ended up teaching online for that same university, the
Mhm.
same course that I was teaching, doing some, freelance marketing, just lots of different things. And then about a year and a half into the pandemic, kind of hit this spot where I was like, I didn't quit my job in corporate consulting to piece together all these part-time jobs. Like I want to actually be a business owner. I want to, do something that helps people that I feel passionate about. And so I worked with a career coach and she got me to realize, hey, this course that you're teaching to college students, this is a really unique skill set that you have. And this could be of benefit to 9 to 5ers, VAs, freelancers, business owners, all these other people, because the reality is that the world that we live in, there are so many things that need to be created, whether it's, social graphics or presentations, all kinds of, logos and product logos and things like that. And most people starting out don't have the ability to just say, oh, yeah, like I'm going to pay a professional graphic designer to do all of it. And so that's really where my course, Create with Confidence, was born. And then I later brought on Done For You branding and web design. I now have a branding mini course, and I will soon be launching a website course, how to DIY your website, in conjunction with a copywriter.
Okay, that's awesome. And I love that you saw a career coach. I love that you got that advice, right? And you knew that there was something here because you knew you had students involved. I know the answer to this question because my hubs is an art director and we live and breathe design. And I go through the agony of him trying to figure out, okay, what do I really need to do for this design? But why do you think design and branding is so important for course creators?
Yeah. So I do this exercise in live workshops that I teach. And I used to do this exercise with college students where I would put 3 sets of colors on the screen. And I would say, tell me how you feel about this brand just when you see these colors. Don't try to guess
Mhm.
what the brand is or say, how do you feel? And so what they didn't know is that it was the colors for Facebook, Instagram, and used to be Snapchat. Now I've pivoted to it's the colors for TikTok.
TikTok.
And again, they don't know, they just see the colors. And so for Facebook, they say it's boring, bland, run of the mill. For Instagram, they say creative, youthful, fun. And for TikTok, it's, lively, bold, whatever. And then I reveal the logos and it's, oh my gosh, it's this big aha moment. And so one of my big talking points is that good design doesn't just look good. Every font, color, and shape that you use is communicating something about who you are and what you stand for before someone ever reads a single word of copy, before they ever read your title, your Instagram bio, your I help statement, your course tagline, whatever it is. So, the purpose of good design is to appeal to the person that you are trying to attract, to capture their attention, keep them engaged long enough to read the web page and all this copy that you've written or invested in someone writing to then actually take action, sign up, learn more, book a call, buy the product.
Yeah, so good. That's the power of great branding, right? And I was on your Instagram before hopping on, and I saw you do a video about here's like 5 elements to get started with design and branding, and you talked about fonts and you talked about colors. Can you talk about that a little bit? And in terms of for those of you listening, some of you've got some branding set up. Some of you are kind of flying the plane as you build it, or whatever that metaphor is. Wherever we are, Felter, give us some tips about getting started with branding.
Yeah. So this is exactly what I teach in my mini course DIY to deluxe, which is less than the cost of a dinner out. And so basically, what I teach is you want to start with 5 words. What are 5 words that you would want your ideal person to use to describe your brand when they see any of your visual assets? From those 5 words, we're going to choose 2 to 3 fonts, 6 to 8 colors, and 3 to 4 design elements. When I say design elements, I mean repeatable shapes and lines and things like that that you will use throughout your designs. And so when you think of a brand like Apple, you would probably describe that brand as sleek, modern, cutting edge. You can look at a font and you can see this font is sleek or this font is stuffy, and so that is really, that's what I teach, and it's really that simple. And I actually have a free quiz, felterunfiltered.com/quiz. That's what fonts and colors should you be using for your brand that can kind of help you get started with that.
And then where do you find inspiration? Because we go through this, we offer brand identity with our Done For You, and a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't even know what I like, right? What do you say when somebody says that?
So I make all of my done for you clients give me their 5 words, and often I get more than 5 words, or
Yeah.
I'll get a word. I'm trying to remember. I'm doing a brand refresh for an attorney right now, and he gave me a word that I think it was strategic. And I was like, tell me a little more about this word strategic. And then it was like, oh, tactful, thoughtful, customer oriented. So it kind of evolved into, probably
Mhm.
9 total words, but it it starts with those words, and that's how I feel like I can typically see colors and fonts from those words. I think for me personally, it's the shapes that I like, an abstract shape, like, I don't always, like, envision it, but I look at Pinterest, I look at Behance, and I just see, different things. I try like, if I'm doing branding for an attorney, I will not look at any other attorney branding. But like this attorney
Mm.
specifically was trying to position himself as compassionate. And so I went and I looked at therapist branding and, like kind of other niches that might, you know, be more adjacent with that, like those brand descriptors, if that makes sense. But I mean, I'm a very authentic person. So like I try, my stuff is always as different looking as I can make it from my inspiration.
Yeah, I still think it's helpful to start with a model though,
Yeah.
right? And just know a starting point because I don't know about you, but oftentimes we do get people who are like, I don't even know where to start, right? I don't
Yeah.
even know where to begin. And I love this idea of starting with the 5 words, but also just cataloging, like you mentioned, Pinterest, like whatever you think looks good and do it now,
Mhm.
right? It's just like I tell people to write down stories and write down content in a journal. Don't be afraid to journal great design or what you think is attractive to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you a proponent of that?
Yeah, but I think, what's really important about the 5 words is like, okay, let's go back to our attorney example.
Mhm.
Most attorneys are going to have logos that have very straight lines and hard edges, and those attorneys are probably trying to give more of a polished, buttoned up, very corporate vibe, whereas this attorney, he is more compassionate, he is more customer focused, and so we're going to use softer lines and softer shapes. And so it's really, it's what you see is what you get when, it comes to design.
Yeah, I like that softer lines and the softer shape. That's awesome. How do you think branding and graphic design affect sales? Like what's the direct correlation in your mind?
So for me, I believe that it's consistency, a consistent
Mhm.
presence that
Yes,
is
I
really
agree.
what kind of, pushes someone over the edge. Like if I go to your Instagram and it looks like one thing, and then I go to your website and it looks like another thing, and then I download a lead magnet and I'm looking at a PDF and it's, completely different from the others. Like in my head, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to pay $9.97 for this course. Now, if it's a $27 course, that's a different ball game. But, really when we're talking about high ticket, mid ticket items, you don't want to give a red flag. You don't want an opportunity to cast doubt in the mind of your buyer. And so it's having that consistent presence. It just never even becomes a question.
Yeah, it's so good. I 100% agree. And like carrying it through your emails, right? And your
Mhm.
social, and like everything is a seamless experience. Like my pink, people are probably like sick of seeing the damn pink, the hot pink, but it's everywhere. And that's because of my husband. And he is an absolute monster in a great way about that, and making sure that we are really consistent and that experience is consistent. So I love that. What are some branding mistakes that you see when we're DIYing our own design?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times I see people that their branding is not aligned with what I can assume that they are trying to convey. And so typically what happens is people select fonts and colors based on their favorite color, something that's popular. They just go to Canva and they pick whatever. I worked with a social media manager who told me I went to Pinterest and I searched social media manager color palette, and that's how I chose my color palette.
Amazing.
So I think it's picking things willy-nilly.
Yeah.
I also think it's if every time you need to create something, you're going to Canva, you're picking a new template, and you're just changing the colors, maybe also the fonts. There's more to a design than just the fonts and the colors, and that's all communicating something. So let's say that it has, an image with a rough edge on it, or an angled line, or kind of an organic looking shape. All of those different things communicate different things.
Yeah, I think this comes up all the time where it's not our clients, but we see it with other people where they'll have a picture. We're like, okay, how does that represent your brand? And they'll be like, oh, it doesn't. I just like that picture, or I like the colors. But
Mhm.
meanwhile, it doesn't say anything about who they are,
Mhm.
right? And just having that consciousness of knowing that like every design, and I think that goes back to what you're saying, willy nilly, right? Oh, I picked the
Mhm.
colors because I thought they were pretty, or my friend had these colors. So, but like, what does that say about you? But like, don't you think great design tells a story?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I actually the favorite color thing is a little polarizing because I think for a lot of business owners, their branding is very personal to them. And
Mm-hmm.
so some people have a very strong preference of like, my favorite color is green. I want green to be a part of it. But it's like there are a ton of different shades of green, and I recently did a reel about, okay, let's say your favorite color is pink. If you're a bold brand, use hot pink. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a high-end brand, use a beigey pink, and if you're more of a professional brand, use like a rosy, you know, kind of pink. And it's like that's a way to incorporate your favorite color, but then to make sure that it aligns with what you're trying to communicate.
And aligns with your audience too, right? So I
Yes.
know I attract a lot of women. I do. Hello, guys, if you're listening right now, adore you as well. But I attract a lot of women, so I know, and like I know that's what's going to happen with the pink. And then I get the guys who are really secure in themselves, who are like, I don't care if you're pink, right? So I think it's
Mhm.
about your audience too that you're serving. Like if you have this really bold color, but maybe your audience would repel that, then that's something you need to keep in mind.
Yeah, and that I love that you brought this up because a lot of times people overlook secondary audiences.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that you're appealing to professionals, but it might not necessarily be the, professional 9 to 5 or that's swiping the credit card to purchase whatever the thing is. It might be their supervisor, their
Sure.
HR director. you need to make sure that your branding not only appeals to that professional, but then when the email gets forwarded to the director of HR and it's, hey, I want to purchase this course, that the HR director isn't just like, what is this hot pink and purple that I am looking at? Because this looks
A
like
hot mess.
candy cane lane. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that, and keeping that in mind, the secondary, right? The decision maker. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we get those folks who might be interested, but then they're not the money people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have to
Yeah.
please the money people too. I think that's a really great point. What about some trends, Felter, that you're seeing in course websites or design? Hit me.
So, I thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
One of them is, in promoting things like video is huge.
Yes.
Face to camera on Reels and on Instagram stories. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when people, well, you should always caption, but they caption and there's no headline or
Mhm.
text anywhere on the screen that tells me what is this video about and why should I care? So, like, I'm scrolling through my feed and all of a sudden I'm looking at someone's face and I see words on the bottom that's like, the other day I was working with a client and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm going to scroll right past that.
Mhm.
But if there's very prominently designed text above the person's head that says, why you need a CFO in your business, then I might actually,
Check it out.
yeah,
It's
stick
not my
around,
scroll.
actually
Yeah.
watch the video. So that's a really big one is having a prominently designed headline, especially for videos. Um, I also think, I mean, this isn't really a trend, but this
Mhm.
is a pet peeve of mine is
Sure.
like on a sales page, for a website or something, there's a lot of copy. There's got to be a lot of copy.
Yeah.
You got to nurture someone through, the problem and I'm the solution, buy my course, whatever. But if you've got just endless paragraphs, no one's going to read that. You have to hook someone in again with a prominently designed headline,
Mhm.
sometimes subheadings, because someone's eye is just going to scan those headlines. And if you capture their attention, then they will actually read the copy that's underneath. Same thing for, let's say you're listing out all of the features of your course. If I'm looking at 12 bullets, I'm not reading 12 bullets.
Mm-mm.
But
Too
if
many.
you bold a summary word at the
Mhm.
beginning of each one, then I can easily scan, that says like time commitment and, transformation and whatever the words are. Or if you break those bullets up into maybe two or three subcategories, and I see
Yes.
some subheadings that say, what's included and when we meet and, whatever those things are, then I'm so much more likely to read that information. That is using design to your advantage.
Yes, and breaking it up too. I was just looking at this website that had so much copy on it and not nearly enough design elements.
Mhm.
And you give up, right? Like the eye grows tired and I left.
Mhm.
So even though I'm interested, but and that's a friction point, right?
Mhm.
For us, and design can really help with that. As we wrap up, Felter, so any last advice? Like, you have anything about building our course creation businesses?
Yes. So, two things that have been very hard lessons that I have learned. The first one is market research is essential. I launched a course over a year ago that I thought was the perfect offer at the perfect price. I thought my people were going to eat it up. And I sold a big fat zero of that course when I launched it because I did not do market research. And I surveyed my audience after the fact, and they said, oh, we thought that this was exactly the same as the other course that you've, sold and some of us have purchased. So I am such a strong believer in market research. Like when you put your offer together, you have to talk to your ideal person and say, what are your pain points? Okay, here's what I think I'm going to put together and what I'm going to sell it at. Would you invest? Is it a no-brainer? Is it a maybe? Is it a definitely not? Tell me why. So that's
Great.
thing number 1.
Yes,
Um
validation always. Okay, what's number
yeah,
two?
is position what you do as something that saves people money or makes people money.
Mm,
So I used to talk about design as like, un- I I thought that everybody just understood why you need good design. And it wasn't until I positioned it as, hey, this is a thing that affects your bottom line. And, all my content also aligned with that, that my business really took off.
okay, love it. Yes, I 100% agree with both points. Okay, Felter, where can we learn more about you and your content?
Yeah. So I hang out on Instagram. I'm felter.unfiltered. And I will just plug again my free quiz. It's what fonts and colors should you use for your brand? And it's felterandfiltered.com/quiz.
Okay, awesome. Check it out. We'll link to it in the show notes. Thanks so much for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me.